What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another video. I hope everybody's doing well, and yeah, let's dive straight into things. Hopefully you watched yesterday's video. If not, definitely go check it out. And we're going to be starting on the daily dollar as per usual. So here you can see we had a down close day just as anticipated. Price traded up to the volume imbalance or inversion imbalance, which I drew our attention to yesterday, and then you can see we had a nice down close day, and we're really starting to work our way down in towards this monthly fair value gap, which I spoke about at the beginning of the week. So if you've been watching my videos this week, you'll know that my draw on liquidity and where I want to see price draw to is this fair value gap right here, and more specifically this monthly consequent encroachment, which is the midpoint. This is my general direction for dollar, and moving it into tomorrow and in towards Thursday, my bias remains the same in that I'm expecting price to continue to fall. So let's drop down to the 4 hour, and we did have quite an interesting day, and what I mean by that is that there was a lot of back and forth price action. Now back and forth price action is usually very typical of consolidation, but it's also good because it shows when we see price leave a consolidation, it means that we're probably going to get large expansion in one direction, and obviously as we have the Fed interest rate decisions tomorrow, this will be supportive of that. So we'll talk more on that as we drop to the lower time frames, but nonetheless, here's the 4 hour, and you can see here's all that back and forth price action we saw today, and we can see our volume is respecting this bearish order block. You can see the wicks were doing a lot of the damage here, wicking above this high twice, and then it's also tapping into this inversion imbalance which I was talking about. So, but we'll go to the 1 hour, and you can see we have the daily dividers here. So if we look at our price delivered, you'll see we traded up into the range almost perfectly, and then beautiful displacement to the downside as we ran out that south side liquidity. So if you watched yesterday's video, that would have been a perfect setup, because this is exactly where I called out. I wanted to see the high get made here, but you can see how we did return to it later. To be honest, with us hitting that high at 2 AM and then expanded so quickly anyway, I'm not really surprised that it pulled in this deeply, but it's interesting to see how once we pulled in, price left it again for a second time. So this whole range has been traded on the upside, downside, upside, and downside again. So again, this creates like almost a buffer for prices, and with trade it's a very fairly distributed, as in both on, as ICT would say, both on the buy side and sell side, because we've seen it trade up, down, and now we're anticipating price to be able to leave it as it penetrates deeper in towards the monthly fair value gap. But yeah, nice delivery in the morning for sure. Let's take a look at the 15-minute. And you can see how we made a high right here, and then we had this beautiful displacement at 245, which is classic, and then the 3 AM setup right here to go short, and then obviously that was that south side target. So now that south side liquidity pool's been grabbed, we can delete that, and what I'm going to be studying now is the rest of the price action. So you can see we filled this fair value gap in, and I'll draw this out right now. So we have a gap between here and here, and you can see our price is traded in that on the upside, downside multiple times, once, twice. Look at this, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then it's left it again. So you see our price is filling in these premium PD arrays. The way it keeps doing this and leaving it is typical and very indicative of lower pricing. So I'm moving into tomorrow with the expectation that price is going to be able to roll over, and what I mean by that is that as soon as we open, I'd like to think that price will continue falling until it reaches ideally this midpoint of the monthly, and then and only then would I anticipate a potential reversal or whatnot. But other than that, I'm not expecting price to be able to trade back above these levels anytime soon. Let's go to the 5-minute, and again you can see that displacement. Very interesting price action. We're slightly in the consolidation right now, but I'd expect a classic setup in terms of creating some kind of high during London, and then I want to see displacement to the downside. Ideally we don't pull back like we saw today later on in the day. I'd like to think that the high in London will remain the high in London. That would be ideal. Let's see if we can find a PD array that's more clean, maybe on a higher time frame, that we can use to refer to. We have a gap here, we also have a gap here, and we have a gap here. This gap I like to look off in the fact that if we look at the trading range, so between this high and this low, you see that this gap remains below the 50% level, as in I'm not expecting price to return back to the midpoint of this current trading range. 25% level seems more doable, and so therefore the fair value gap here is the highest I want to see price trade. But I will go up one more time frame just to see if there's anything. Obviously we've got a bearish order block and a gap that looks like it's about to form here, but we will stick to the hourly for now, and I'm going to drag this into the new day, and this is going to be used as a barometer in that in Wednesday's trading, any higher than this I'll be a bit suspicious for price, because ideally I want to see this get left I want to see this act as resistance. So if we trade into that, I want to see price turn at it and continue again to roll over lower and start heading towards the discounts. This was a 25% level off the monthly fair value gap, which I drew our attention to yesterday. So that's still relevant, as in price may want to use this as a point of reference, as in obviously it has to get to here before it wants to think about getting down here. So if we do see that rollover, this is where my first call would be, and then I want to see it continue to drop. But this is all assuming we continue to respect any kind of bearish PD array, which is right here. So yeah, very nice, very interesting day. Again, it was the latter half of the day which would have drove anyone crazy, all this consolidation, and then not until 11:20 do we see displacement. But right before interest rates, you know, this is typical, as in we usually enter a consolidation now probably for the rest of the day until the interest rates, and then it'll consolidate again, and then Thursday it'll probably loosen up a little bit more. But let's head into GBP USD, and we'll start here on the daily as well. And you'll see how we had an up close day, and you can see our price traded right down into the bullish order blocks, which I spoke about yesterday. So we traded into this one, but we also managed, which was interesting, to tap into the open off this one, which I didn't anticipate. And this was when it came back on itself, and we will look at that on a lower time frame. But nonetheless, my bias still remains the same in wanting to see expansion and this buy side liquidity pool above these relatively equal highs get taken. So nothing's really changed on that behalf. But let's go to the 4 hour. And you can see this very interesting day we tapped into the bullish order block, as in, you know, this is the open of it. You can see our price respected that, traded higher, and then we had that kind of ziggy zaggy back and forth price action I was talking about here, where we tapped down deeper, trading into another fair value gap on the 4 hour. So we'll look at that, and you can see how what's interesting is that although we've tapped down past the 50% level with the wicks, look at how volume continues to respect it and is now trading on higher. You know, there's a willingness to want to go higher. It's just interesting our price keeps, you know, tapping down and taking out any kind of longs. Anyone that was going long is getting absolutely slaughtered, and they're likely doing that for a reason. Let's go to the 1 hour, and you can see again there's that classic back and forth price action with these two down close candles now acting as bullish order blocks. So what we're going to do is I'm going to draw out this inversion fair value gap on the 1 hour. And this is an inversion fair value gap because it's a gap here, but with close on the upside. You can see there's a pass through here, 1, 2, and then left. So if price is going to return back to this should now act as a bullish order block. I don't know if that was, sorry, apologies if that was left in, guys. Anyway, my point is we have an inversion fair value gap here. So if price is going to create any kind of low, it will come down to here, and then I'd want to see it find support at that point to trade on higher, and that's assuming price even manages to drop down into that. That's just food for thought. Another thing we can use to our advantage is yesterday's Asian range, and you can see that also lines up with the same range, so the high and the low. Well, the low was here, but my point is Asia range acts as buffers anyway, so the fact that we're back above it is more support as to why if price manages to tap into it, we anticipate it providing support for us to then trade on higher. Let's go to the 15-minute. Same thing, not really much. There's a bullish order block here which lines up with this, so it'd be nice to see if price can create the low of the day tomorrow here. That would be ideal. If it's going to happen, I want to see it happen in London, and then like I said, I want to see expansion during during interest rates, and then there'll probably be a lot of consolidation. But overall, you know, my draw is still on the buy side here. We just need to be careful, especially after today with this kind of ugly price action. But the way it's accumulated stops below these lows, I do believe this was just simply a draw on a grab on liquidity before prices to expand on higher. But yeah, overall I just want to see price keep pulling up and in line with dollar, ideally, again respecting its premium PD arrays so that it can push on deeper into this monthly fair value gap. We've got to remember that our draw and our biases are coming from the monthly, so as much as we may think that like any kind of reversals or on lower time frames and we want to change our bias, we need to remember that the monthly is always going to be stronger than say the 4 hour or the daily, and because of that we should stick to our biases until proven otherwise. Let's finish off on the Euro USD. Again, interesting delivery, and what I found fascinating was how price traded perfectly in the morning to this 25% level. So if you watched yesterday's video, you'll know I drew our attention to the 25% level of this wick, and I was saying I want to see if price can tap into that specifically because I like the look of it. And you can see right here at about, was it 3 a.m, 2:15, price tapped it almost perfectly and then ran away from it. So this is interesting because it shows why these 25% levels prices are significant. Although, you know, we came back down to it, this was a perfect setup in that 2 a.m. we hit it, and then 3 a.m. setup forms, we go long with the expectation to start running towards our target, and then obviously it came back and ran out, stops below it. But my point is, we managed to cool this to a T, as in you can't make this stuff up. So like, it's just it's evidence of the algorithm, and that, you know, when you know what to look for, you can identify it. It's the way it's then handling it from there on. It's reacting to it that we need to learn to do correctly, because although I knew it was going to trade, although I suggested that it was going to trade into here, I didn't know when it was going to do it, and I didn't know how it was going to do it, but it did do it. And then look at the response it got away from it, and it's knowing that these levels are responsive, which is important. But nonetheless, you can see our price still managed to tap into it a few times. Look at the volume. Again, volume still respecting it. Yes, we wicked here, 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 here. What's it doing? It's taking out any person that went long on the back of this. It wants to get rid of them. And I believe they're doing this because obviously my bias is wanting to see us trade on deeper into this monthly fair value gap. So, I do think it's just a match-up manipulation. But yeah, very interesting. And then let's go up to the daily, take a closer look. I'm looking for this 50% level to get traded to, and remember there was a small gap up here that price may want to get to, depending on how overzealous we get. But let's go to the 4 hour. Not really much. Again, lots of back and forth, guys, but we will look at this inversion fair value gap, and similarly this will be the lowest I want to see price trade tomorrow. So we have a gap, drag it through. It's been traded on the upside, on the downside, on the upside again. So that means it should be a bullish fair value gap that's been fairly traded through. If price is going to come back through this, it needs to do it with aggression, and it needs to do it fast. And yes, interest rates can do that, and we need to be aware of that. But my point is, if we fall into this before interest rates and we start to find support on the back of it, I'm remaining long until proven otherwise, and I want to see us start reaching up, because this whole gap between this top line and this bottom line is a monthly fair value gap. So that's going to be everything, guys. I hope that all makes sense. Definitely check out yesterday's video if you haven't yet. It'll make a lot more sense. And definitely check out Sunday's video if you haven't already yet. It'll definitely make a lot more sense. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, smash subscribe, join the mailing list, join me over on Discord, and make sure to turn on post notifications. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.